wanted to show you guys here today. Check this out. So this is cool. I actually asked Razer. They had no idea if this was going to work or not, but hey, USB is USB, right? And this thing, for a project type product, not product, project, it's in a fairly functional state, actually. Check this out. This right here is the Razer Mamba Hyperflux. It is a wireless mouse that requires no battery and no wire whatsoever because it is using inductive charging. Now, you might say, well, hold on a minute, Linus. Logitech has had that for months. And you would be right. But that's slightly different because Razer's solution doesn't have a battery. So, when you take it off the pad, you have to plug in the cable or it just doesn't work at all. And you might go, but Linus, that sounds terrible. Well, hold on. Maybe it's not terrible. Maybe it's just a different use case because unlike Logitech's solution, the Mamba Hyperflux is extremely light. So what it has in it is a capacitor that charges up over a span of about 30 seconds because, I mean, it's got to use all the rest of the power so for all the, chroma, RGB lighting and everything on it. And then that gives you about 5 to 10 seconds of, lift-off time where like, oh, I accidentally went off my mouse pad, but I want to make sure that it's working right away. And there it is. Completely wireless mouse, and all yours for value price of just $249. So anyway, thanks for checking out our video from here in the Razer suite at CES 2018, and a huge shout out to FreshBooks for allowing us to be here. FreshBooks is the cloud-based accounting solution for freelancers and small business owners. It allows you to create and send professional-looking invoices in seconds. It lets you set up online payments in just a few clicks to get paid up to 4 days faster. They've got their great mobile apps for iOS and Android, so you can take the full functionality of the platform with you, and this is cool, you can actually see when your client has seen your invoice and put an end to the guessing game. So, for your free trial, head over to freshbooks.com/LinusCES. Thank you, Colton. We're going to have that linked in the video description. So thanks for watching, guys. You can dislike, you can like. It won't hurt my feelings either way. I'm just going to assume that if you disliked it, it was something to do with Razer, not to do with me. While you're down there, you can check out where to see the rest of our CES videos. Sure, let's link the playlist down there or something like that. Yeah. You can't buy any of this stuff. That's the problem with CES. I can't use my standard outro. It kills me.
Environmental temperatures are within acceptable limits. Life support is back online.
Let's get a scan.
Hey, how's it going? Dave 2D here. So CES day one, I got to check out a couple events. Now, before I get into that stuff, I need to talk about the image quality of what you're looking at. I'm shooting this on a smartphone. I actually went to CES very light this year. I brought 2 smartphones, Pixel 2 XL and an iPhone 10, and the image quality is significantly worse than I thought it would be. So a lot of event spaces are dark. I knew they'd be dark, I expected it, but I just thought the image quality on these new smartphone cameras would just be a little bit better, and it's just bad. I apologize in advance. Okay, first thing I went into was the Acer event. They have a couple of new devices this year. The one that stood out to me was the Acer Swift 7. So this has been updated, but it's now a little bit thinner, a little bit just better across the board. And this is a really well-built, ultra-thin laptop. It is literally the thinnest laptop in the world right now, 8.98 millimeters, and it's a 14-inch screen, but a really nice keyboard. So a lot of devices that are this thin just have to compromise on the keyboard. Just the typing experience isn't very good. This feels like a regular Ultrabook with nice key travel, backlit keys and everything. The thing that's a little bit weird about this keyboard is the backspace key. So if you look up the top here, the delete is right beside the backspace. So if you're not used to the keyboard, it might be a little bit weird. The trackpad does not click. So there's a tap mechanism, but there's no actual physical movement when you tap. There's literally no tactile response when you tap it. It's just like tapping, but it's a very good trackpad, Windows Precision drivers. The whole laptop though is surprisingly expensive. This was $1,700, and it's, I mean, the market for this thing has got to be a bit of a niche, but if you're looking for someone that's really thin and you want something that's literally the thinnest laptop in the world right now, this is it. There's also 4G LTE built right into the laptop, so we can use a nano SIM or eSIM, and you can basically have this thing connected to the internet all the time without needing to tether it to your phone or anything like that. Now, the thing that might be a deal breaker for some people is that this thing is using a 7th gen Intel CPU, and I thought it was a little bit weird because 8th gen is already here, but for devices that are this small and this portable, I don't think there's going to be a big difference between 7th and 8th gen performance. Now, another thing that I saw was the new Acer Nitro 5, and what makes this thing special is it's running an AMD CPU, the Ryzen 5, and an upcoming AMD GPU. Now the actual GPU is undetermined, but it's going to give performance similar to the GTX 1050 or the 1050 Ti, so that kind of budget gaming laptop range. They had other things like the Chromebook. They have this blue Chromebook with USB-C port, which is kind of cool if you're into that stuff, but that's basically the gist of the Acer event. So another thing I went to was the Samsung event, and they had this huge TV that they call the Wall. And what makes this one special, well, it's 8K, micro LED, it looks incredible. A lot of like the OLED and QLED TVs just look really good, but this one was probably the nicest one I've ever seen. But the thing that really impressed me about this thing was the AI. So they have this technology for other TVs, not just this one, but a lot of their higher end TVs this year, but they use this algorithm to basically upscale lower res footage into 8K. So they can take some crappy 40p footage, look at this database, kind of figure out what needs to be upscaled and how to upscale each component with this algorithm, and then push it out in what seemingly is 8K content, which is crazy. The last thing I saw was another really big screen. It's the NVIDIA BFG displays, which is probably a reference to Doom, but they actually call it the big format gaming display. It's basically the 65-inch TV-shaped object, which is, it's essentially a TV, but the panel is amazing for gaming. It's actually not meant for TV, like it's not geared towards having the best image quality for media consumption, but it's freaking amazing for gameplay. So they had this thing connected up to a PC and they were demoing Destiny 2, and it just looked really...
FreshBooks is the cloud accounting software built...
Where are we going?
This week or right now?
Right now.
Starbucks!
Coffee.
It's the only way to start it. This line!
Hey everyone, we're at CES 2018 at the Corsair booth right now, looking at two of their new wireless products, the K63 wireless keyboard and the Dark Core mouse. They also have a Dark Core SE, and these are sort of loosely counterparts to what Logitech shipped earlier with their wireless charging mouse and mousepad, but they're a bit different. We'll talk about that in a moment. But before getting to that, this video is brought to you by Leon Lee and their 550X and 330 cases. The 550X is a $180 mid-tower case with tempered glass on all panels. It's got 3 RGB LED fans positioned in the front, each of which has a metal frame housing and an open interior design. If you prefer a cheaper option, the 330 is $100 and comes without fans, and is what we recommended most heavily in one of our recent case reviews. Learn more at the link in the description below. Starting with the K63 keyboard, the keyboard here, this is $110, shipping January. All these are shipping January this month. Right. So this is a non-10 key keyboard, it's 10 keyless. It has both wireless and Bluetooth transmission modes. Wireless is probably how you use it. That's 2.4 gigahertz, pretty standard. And there's a 1 millisecond transmission latency. We don't yet know the click-to-response latency, the input latency as it were, but should be getting that shortly. Transmission's 1 millisecond though, which is about as good as you can get for wireless. Other than that, it's got Bluetooth, and the Bluetooth mode is the power-saving Bluetooth spec, which means that it's going to have a bit slower response. It's about 7 milliseconds, give or take. But then again, it's Bluetooth, and that's never going to be as good. The upside here, Corsair didn't talk about this in their meeting, but one of the upsides we've found to having 2 modes on a keyboard or mouse is that you can connect to a streaming PC separately with one, i.e. Bluetooth, and then to your main system with wireless or wired if you prefer, which is kind of interesting because then you can get rid of software solutions like Synergy and go instead with a hardware solution if you prefer that. The mouse is largely the same spec for the wireless solution. The sensor on the mouse is a 3367 PixArt sensor. It's a PixArt sensor that Corsair has had input on, so it's slightly customized at least. For now, friends, for the mouse, the Dark Core is the non-Qi charging version. That's $80, and you can all of these you can connect them by wire. The mouse pad goes with the Qi charging version, so you have the Dark Core SE at $10 more, the mouse pad at $80 additional for that, which has a single spot for charging. So this is where it gets a bit different from Logitech's solution. The Logitech solution we looked at previously uses a magnetic resonance charging, which more or less covers the whole mat. When we took it apart, you can see the copper coil that wraps around the entire surface of the mat, and it charges optimally in the center, although it will sort of charge over the whole thing while in use. The Corsair solution uses instead what they call a Qi spot, which, let me be clear for the YouTube moderators out there, that was Qi spot. I had an idea, okay, don't demonetize us. So that's in the top right corner. It's a 7-watt output, and the cable connected to it, the micro USB cable, is 2 amps, so it's a bit more than you get typically. And theoretically, it should charge a bit faster than the Logitech solution, but it doesn't charge while in use. So that's your trade-off there between the two options on the market. You place the mouse specifically in the top right corner, it will charge a bit faster, and then you take it off when you're ready to go. Corsair says that they preferred this solution, which they showed at Computex, by the way, because you can also charge other devices like your phone if you have a Qi charging capable phone. They're also shipping dongles. This starts to get a little bit silly because you're chaining multiple inefficient technologies together, but the idea is nice. You attach a dongle, then you attach that to whatever you want, and you drop that on top of the Qi spot and charge the device that way. I think that covers the basics of everything. There might be a couple of other items of note. I guess battery life we could go over. The mouse is rated for what they claim is 24 hours continuous with the lighting enabled, and the keyboard is rated for, I believe, 15 hours continuous with the lighting at 66%. It can go up to 100%, which is very bright and kind of unnecessary, but if you want that, it's 10 hours at that point. And then disabling it, I think it's 75. So that's continuous use for all of those numbers, not, you know, go and take breaks, use things like that, which is what Logitech rates theirs for. So they all kind of rate their use differently, which means you can't just compare them head to head without a standardized third-party benchmark. But I think that covers it. Pretty sure that's everything for Corsair's wireless technologies. If I've missed anything, we'll either do title cards over here with the info. Otherwise, check the article link in the description below for the full specifications. May go live a bit later. Subscribe for more CES coverage as always, and go to patreon.com/gamersnexus to help us out directly. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time. The NZXT N7 motherboard is an ATX board. It's using Intel's Coffee Lake line, the Z370 chipset, and we think we know who the OEM is. Talk about that at the end of this video. Before that, this video is brought to you by Leon Lee and their 550X and 330 cases. The 550X is a $180 mid-tower case with tempered glass on all panels. It's got 3 RGB LED fans positioned in the front, each of which has a metal frame housing and an open interior design. If you prefer a cheaper option, the 330 is $100 and comes without fans, and is what we recommended most heavily in one of our recent case reviews. Learn more at the link in the description below. So the key features here are clearly demarcated in all of the board's images. It's pretty obvious when you look at it. It's basically that metal plate on top of the board. They're going for an aesthetics first approach. And we have the board. We haven't had a chance to look through its power componentry yet, but we'll get there after CES. So for the visuals side of it, the plate on top is kind of like the Asus Sabertooth boards. It is a steel plate. It doesn't really have any thermal dissipation properties to speak of, and it's not meant to. It's just for visuals. The M.2 SSD covers look like heat sinks, but they're actually not, which is actually not a bad thing. And instead, they are, for some reason, aluminum topped covers, from what I'm told. Not sure why, because the underside is plastic. So not really a great thermal conductor, but you're not supposed to leave it there when you install an SSD. So those come out, and the SSD covers in general are kind of sort of a flawed idea to begin with. NAND doesn't actually like being cooler. You cut its lifespan down as you cool it, whereas the controller likes to be cooler. So doesn't really matter there, but it's all visuals on the plate. The VRM heatsink is not particularly exciting. It has some fins, but it's nothing like the EVGA dark fins or the Gigabyte X470 board we just looked at for its fin stack. It's definitely more on the visuals side of things, and so you might need some direct airflow. The VRM, we don't have specifics on it today. We will after CES once we tear the board apart. But we do know from the marketing materials that it's a 15-phase digital VRM. We don't know the allocation of those phases to different components, how much is vCore versus vMem. And we also know that it's using Infineon components for the power
Financial and personnel
circuitry or
reports.
for the ICs
However,
and
the
drivers
EN
and all
signature
that,
suggests
but
data
don't
was
have full
recently
details on that. So
deployed.
we'll look into that later. As for the rest of this, they've basically succeeded in making a unique board in a highly competitive market, but motherboards are not like cases. They are very functional. So NZXT is trying to carve out a bit of a niche here, and whether that works will hinge on how good the board is in its core functions, which is being a motherboard. So we'll see how that goes in testing. For today, what we know is it's $300. It includes the RGB hue controller and the grid fan controller in it. The grid fan controller can do 9 channels for the fans, quite a lot there, and that is actually 9 separate, at least 9 fan ports on the motherboard, so 4-pin as it were, and that gives you a lot of options for fans. RGB just hooks into the normal RGB strips. Memory support's pretty limited here. It only goes up to 3866 megahertz, which comparatively for a $300 motherboard is actually quite low. We have some boards that we've successfully gotten up to nearly 4600 megahertz, so a bit lower for a $300 board. NZXT's argument is, hey, you're spending the money on the LEDs and the fan controller. It's not a pro overclocking board. You could buy an Asus ROG board around the same price if you wanted that. So different things for different markets. And again, it's all going to come down to testing. Core components include 2 full-length PCIe X16 slots, 1 PCIe by 1 slot, and 2 PCIe by 4 slots. A little bit anemic on the by 16 length slots. And from what we've seen so far, here's the interesting part. It looks like, and I'm 99.9% positive about this.
I was too busy to assist.
Actually, I'm positive about it.
I suppose
but I'm
I'll
trying
have to make the time.
Leave some room for
What
error,
do you need?
but there is none. The OEM is ECS. So ECS is the OEM.
I'd like to
ODM
ask Dr. Aiden a few questions.
For this motherboard,
Do you know him?
no hesitation
Or where
in
he is?
saying that.
Oh yes.
You can tell
Adam's
by
some sort of
looking at it
biologist.
and the
We were
BIOS
among the
and
first to
digging
wake
through
up.
things.
Difficult times.
So
I haven't seen him since the Ark was rescued.
How
Why Adam?
ECS does with the
Salen
execution on
Varn
this one.
mentioned.
NZXT
Salen?
ultimately did specify the
I
board.
see.
They
If the
had
major's at
hands
it-
in design.
What do you mean?
It's just they
No,
don't
I
make
won't spread
motherboards. They need
rumors.
someone to make
You
it
can
for
go,
them,
but I
and
wouldn't
that
break
happens
into
to be
any more homes on
ECS.
Salen's
We'll be
advice.
reviewing this board once we get back. For now, though, you've got the basics. You can find more in the article in the description below, as always. And subscribe for more for the rest of CES coverage. Patreon.com/GamersNexus
misled,
helps
I
out
should hear
directly.
these rumors.
I'll see you all next time.
The Major is brilliant, but he's just been investigating too long. He's been bothering us with conspiracies since he woke up. It's common in retired agents. They can't navigate a world without espionage.
I see.
Look, let's forget this happened. For the Major's sake. Goodbye, Pathfinder.
Still got that planet identified, Sam?
Yes, Path.
Hey everyone, we were at the MSI booth at CES 2018 looking at 2 primary products. One is a prototype. The other one is in front of me. That's the Z370 Godlike motherboard for Intel's, of course, Coffee Lake platform. It's got some interesting power design we'll be talking about. We've got most of the information on this one, and it's definitely a flagship, probably in the $500-ish range. So we'll be getting to that after this. Before that, this coverage is brought to you by Thermaltake and the Flow liquid cooler. The Flow is a 360mm radiator with 3 Ring RGB LED fans. You can program the fans for custom lighting through software, and then of course benefit from the larger radiator size and cooling performance. Learn more at the link in the description below. So for the Z370 Godlike board, this is a brand that has existed in the past for MSI. They're bringing it back for Coffee Lake. They've got a couple of key features here. Obviously, this has a lot of the gamer embellishments on it with, for example, caution, ultimate power, and things like that. The most interesting feature on the MSI motherboard is probably the network switch that's built in. The network switch, basically it's 3 Ethernet ports on the back of the board, and you can plug a console or some other device into the board, and then out of it will come the signal that goes back to the router. So you can actually use the board as a switch itself for another device. At the base of it, it's an 18-phase, so it's a doubled 8-phase VRM plus 2 for the memory, and they're using IR or International Rectifier 3555 MOSFETs for it with a 35201 controller, which we've seen actually pretty frequently in the last couple months that's also IR, by the way, for the voltage controller. Other than that, memory support is 4133 megahertz at its max for this board officially, and that is powered by the 2-phase VRM, VMEM, VRM. Other information, those are 60 amp power stages, so the 3555s are 60 amp stages It can handle plenty of power. It's spread out over 16 of them for V-core, and the heatsink on this one is getting closer to what we're looking for. It's kind of diced in a way that it's not just a big aluminum block this time. It does actually have some surface area to it, and then it's got the usual covers for I/O cover and for the kind of metal top cover with all the branding on it. So it's getting there. It's looking better than previously. For power configuration, this one is an 8+4 for EPS 12 volt. There's also a 6-pin PCIe power for the PCIe slots, of which there are 4 16-length slots. So those would be by 16 and then 3 by 8s, by 16, 8, 8, 8, all the way down the board, which is definitely on the high end for PCIe electrical wiring. So a lot of the boards do by 4s in there as well. So that's kind of cool if you like doing a 4-way setup for GPUs. Other than that, most of the board's kind of covered at this point. There's kind of the expected USB 3.1 Gen 2 and support for all that stuff that you've seen in basically every board at this point. It has the built-in overclocking switch. It uses a lookup table, so you turn it to different numbers. It checks a lookup table. It applies that overclock to your CPU and whatever else, and then you're pretty much good to go. Obviously, we would recommend you manually overclock these boards. It's decently powerful, but it is an expensive board, so might be something we look at in the future with Buildzoid to analyze the VRM for its actual high-end overclocking capabilities. I'll mention the M2 heat shield since we've done that in the past. So these this time they're aluminum instead of the previous, which was a stainless steel. So aluminum is significantly better thermal conductor than stainless steel for the Gen 1. And they're also using slightly thicker thermal pads, which is just good for ensuring that there's flush contact with all of the components. And of course, I've talked about the difference of cooling NAND versus controllers in the past, so we won't go through that again. But those are all of the main changes on this one. And for the other item, the prototype that I mentioned, that is a new edition of the Titan laptop, which is the sort of Halo product that we've seen in the past with the mechanical keyboard, all that stuff. So just ignoring all of those features for a moment, this is a product where MSI is trying to introduce HDR displays to laptops. One, we can't film it with the HDR display, and two, it's irrelevant because we don't have an HDR camera, and probably 99% of you don't have an HDR display either. But the idea is they're putting HDR displays in laptops. Right now, it's extremely limited. There are 5 of them in existence. There are 2 here, and they are prototypes. So it's a little while out. Sort of long-term view, MSI is trying to go for HDR 100 Hertz displays, which would be crazy if they can pull it off, and eventually roll it out into smaller consumer laptops that are more affordable and not just products, but they're starting there because they have limited quantity. So MSI has told us that they are ready to go. They're just waiting for their suppliers to produce enough of the panels to use in laptops at the laptop sizes. And major challenges for HDR displays have included primarily thermals. So you have obviously a higher power, higher quality display sitting in. They've done it. Asetek has actually made something new. The Asetek Gen 6 pump and cooling solution is now coming out, and it's going first to Corsair, who have a new H150i Pro, this one right here, 360mm radiator with the Gen 6 pump, and also an H115i Pro in the same 280mm family as before, just with the new pump and new fans. Today we're going to be reviewing the H150i just before CES as well. So after CES, we're planning to do a teardown of at least one of them. Stay tuned for that, but for now we can get through the review. Before that, this video is brought to you by Leon Lee and their 550X and 330 cases. The 550X is a $180 mid-tower case with tempered glass on all panels. It's got 3 RGB LED fans positioned in the front, each of which has a metal frame housing and an open interior design. If you prefer a cheaper option, the 330 is $100 and comes without fans, and is what we recommended most heavily in one of our recent case reviews. Learn more at the link in the description below. For the absolute basics, the coolers are 360mm for the H150i and 280mm for the 115i. Both are demarcated with a Pro suffix. The coolers also come with maglev fans without the RGB LEDs or any LEDs at all, so a bit cheaper than the normal magnetic levitation fans. And other than that, the focus is primarily on silence. There are not a whole lot of changes to the Asetek cooling solution outright. Most of the changes involve customizations to the PCB inside that controls the LEDs. For instance, there's another change in the cold plate. It's a couple millimeters smaller than the old cold plate, which is the first change to a cold plate that Asetek has done in years. More than I can remember at this point. So that's a somewhat major change for them, making the cold plate smaller. They also made the pump housing smaller, the block itself, which means that really, aside from visual changes, maybe you'll have fewer clearance concerns, although those were never that much of a concern to begin with. The mounting mechanism is slightly changed, mostly for the better. Now, instead of having multiple drilled through holes for Intel plates, it's just got the sliding setup. So you can accommodate basically any size, and strictly from a modding standpoint, as we do all of those hybrid mods, for example, it makes sense that this kind of bracket solution would be better because you can accommodate things that it's not meant to accommodate, like video cards. So that's a small change that's not as significant as some of the others, like the ML fan inclusion. Tubes are coming out of the side now, so it's back to the way it was in Gen 4, instead of coming out of the top in Gen 5 for Corsair coolers, and they're mounted to 90-degree L brackets. The fans can spin down to 0 RPM. When they do so, they will slave to the liquid temperature rather than CPU temperature, for instance. And so following liquid temperature, they will spin up at 45 degrees Celsius, which is something we'll talk about more at the end of the video. Besides all these, the prices, the H150i Pro is $170, making it one of the most expensive closed-loop liquid coolers on the market. And the H115i Pro is a little bit cheaper than that. It comes in at $140 for the 280mm solution. Most of the marketing for these focuses on noise, so we'll be focusing on noise normalized performance for the most part, meaning that we are normalizing the noise level of all of the coolers we have on that particular chart for 40 decibels. That is system noise in a room with a 26 dBA noise floor. So of course the noise levels are always going to be a bit different than what the manufacturer reports because they're measuring probably in an anechoic chamber or something similar to that. So we're targeting 40 dBA for noise normalization, and then we'll have the flat out performance as well. Let's get into that. For test methodology, as always, you can check the link in the description below for the article. That'll tell you how we tested it and give you a written summary of what we're about to go through. Let's start our thermals with flat out performance and then move on to noise normalized performance testing. Our focus here is fans and pumps at max speed, though we do have lower RPM numbers present. We'll give noise normalized tests more focus in a moment. For now, we're seeing the Corsair H150i right around levels of the H115i V2, not the new one, at 1500 RPM, or the Ice Bear 420 with the high RPM EVGA fans rather than the stock ones. Keep in mind that test variance places everything within the 34.5 to 36.5 degree range as functionally equal surrounding the H150i Pro. Also keep in mind that appreciable differences are lacking at this point, as it's rare to gain significantly from an extra 1 or 2 degrees reduction in temperatures. GPUs are perhaps the primary exception to this, particularly in high overclock scenarios. Regardless, the Corsair H150i maintains an average idle temperature and sits toward the upper quarter of coolers. Because the H150i focuses more on operating quietly, thermal performance isn't a leader until normalizing for other coolers. Most of the thermal performance you're seeing thus far can be attributed to limited thermal gains generationally in the Asetek solution, with Corsair's medium speed fans contributing to the rest of the performance differential. Setting the pump to quiet mode, by the way, results in significantly warmer temperatures. The H150i moves down to 49.9 degrees Celsius over ambient for load temperature, or 12 degrees for idle. This is an increase of 14 degrees from the high-speed pump and is repeatable in testing. To be fair though, quiet does significantly reduce pump speed. The reported rate falls from 2800 RPM to around 1100 RPM. Looking at noise normalized performance at 40 dBA, the Corsair cooler is able to leverage its larger 360mm radiator size, keeping temperatures to about 36.8 degrees over ambient low. This also lands Corsair near the top of the charts here, and it's within margin of error of our X62 and Celsius S36 measurements. These units are all functionally equal in our testing. Corsair is able to spin down to a 0 RPM operating mode, giving it a bit of an upper hand here. If no load is on the system, it can spin down to 0 and sustain idle or simple browser-like processing without spinning up, at least until Liquid hits 45. For full system noise with passively cooled components other than the CPU and a noise floor of 26 dBA, the Corsair unit measured out at around 43 dBA on our meter. The only other thing in the system making noise is a 23% blower fan from a 980 Ti, which makes basically zero noise, at least until the low end of cooler RPMs. This cooler is one of the quietest when operating at its maximum speed, while still retaining some of its thermal performance. It's certainly not the most impressive cooler on the bench, particularly in price to performance value, but it's a mid-pack competitor that performs average thermally for its size, or above average for noise. The pump is responsible for making a good deal of that noise, by the way, and more sensitive users will likely want to operate on either balanced or quiet profiles. The full speed profile makes a noticeable and audible ticking, just like some of the older Asetek pumps. This will be somewhat obfuscated by cases, but not entirely. It just depends on how sensitive you are to that specific type of noise. It is possible, of course, that other system fans could spin up to a point where the pump noise becomes inaudible. The technology underneath the cooler hasn't changed all that much. It's mostly LED changes and then some small changes like returning the tubes to the 90-degree right-angle brackets off the side of the pump housing. Other than that, you've got a slight cold plate size difference, some new LEDs, new fans going to the ML series instead, which is definitely one of the benefits on the noise front for Corsair, but they are kind of weak when it comes to flat-out performance. But to be fair, their target isn't flat-out performance, it's silence. So that's what they're going for here. Other items of note, you'll get about a 2-degree improvement with manual spread of thermal paste on an X99 size platform. So when we did our testing, we used Asetek thermal paste versus Asetek thermal paste when it was applied in the sort of $half size amount on the cold plate, and we did see performance uplift by shifting over to the way we do all of our testing, which is manually spreading the thermal compound. So there's a bit of a performance gain there. It doesn't cover the entire IHS of larger CPUs, and you could benefit a bit. It'll still operate perfectly fine without manual spread, but it's something to keep in mind. 0 RPM mode, waiting for 45-degree liquid temperatures, is a bit interesting because part of the whole deal with this cooler when we were speaking with Corsair and Asetek at Computex last year now was that the Gen 6 pump is supposed to hopefully be stepping away from leaning entirely on liquid temperature and lean instead a bit more on CPU temperature, for example. So liquid temperature is a bit funny. Depending on how good the CPU is at transferring its heat to the liquid cooler, the liquid temperature could be quite low compared to the temperature of the CPU. A great example of this would be a 7700K overclocked, where you could easily get into the 90s Celsius for your core temperature, and liquid temperature on an X62 280mm cooler with max fan speeds would be sitting at low 30s. So big differential there. And of course, if you turn the fans off completely, liquid temperature will increase. We've seen it. And you never want to exceed 60 on these Asetek coolers. So 45 is a good point to toggle on for the Corsair unit. It's just a question of, does it turn on when you need it to? And for the most part, the answer is yes. It's just going to depend partially on the CPU that you're using, because the transfer between the die to the IHS to the cooler can have some latency with regard to the thermal interface between all of those. So it might be a bit latent on spinning back up, but you're not going to lose that much. You might maybe start getting into the 90s, and if you're overclocking, you shouldn't be using a 0 RPM solution anyway. So these are all the things to consider. Overall, as a product, the H150i Pro is priced towards the top of the market. It's right up there with the Kraken X62. The X62 has been one of the most expensive, sometimes almost just not really in a worthy way. It's held that price for far too long in the 150, 160 range. So this comes in above that. It's a bit bigger. It has different RGB LED options if you prefer these, and that's really the primary difference other than the size, which is the biggest driver, but the thermal performance is not all that different. It just comes down to what can you fit in your case. And of course, if you put aftermarket fans on them, that changes a bit because you've got 360 versus 280. So it's not bad in terms of value proposition, it's just expensive, which is fair. The H115i Pro is much more palatable at $140. That's around where the EVGA CLC 280 originally shipped. I think that was $130. And the H115i non-Pro used to be about $130-ish as well. So $140 seems fair for the H115i Pro, though we don't have numbers for it today. So the pricing there seems definitely a bit more palatable than the 150i Pro. This one's not bad. It's just you really have to want that Corsair brand, the pump plate and RGB LEDs on it, and then the rest is all the size of the radiator, basically. And there's valid reasons to want that radiator size. So we'll leave that up to you. The product itself, we have not found any significant flaws with it at this time, so nothing really to complain about in a big way there. That's always a good thing. We will be taking it apart to look at the Gen 6 cooler and see what else has changed. But other than that, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So you can find links for the article review in the description below, alongside links to the product whenever it goes up for sale if you're interested in checking it out further. Subscribe for more. Go to patreon.com/gamersnexus to help us out directly, or store.gamersnexus.net to pick up a mod mat like this one. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time. Our first major AMD video for the week showcased an X470 motherboard from Gigabyte with the AM4 socket, of course, just with an updated chipset and some changes post Ryzen launch. So as the motherboard vendors have been ironing out their side of Ryzen, AMD too has been working on their next iteration of Ryzen. Ryzen 2, or as it's been called sometimes, Ryzen Plus, family of CPUs which will exist on the Zen architecture, not Zen 2, but a Zen architecture. And also there's news on Raven Ridge, the APU integration of the Zen or Ryzen core complexes and the Vega GPUs. We'll be talking about that briefly today. Before that, this coverage is brought to you by Thermaltake and the Flow liquid cooler. The Flow is a 360mm radiator with 3 ring RGB LED fans. You can program the fans for custom lighting through software, and then of course benefit from the larger radiator size in cooling performance. Learn more at the link in the description below. This one's going to be a quick one for us. We didn't go to the AMD Tech Day, but we collected the information separately. Most of our early efforts were focused on the X470 motherboard, which is one of the first one that's been shown officially. You can find that on our channel by Gigabyte. So the main information here, especially as it pertains to Raven Ridge and the APUs, is that the architecture, as expected, is focused on power savings. This is something AMD's been big on with Ryzen and the Zen architecture in general, and they've had some trouble with it with Vega, but combining the two is a bit different than just Vega standalone on the big DGPU PCB. So combining them, Vega and Ryzen, as expected, will communicate via AMD's high-speed interconnect, which they call Infinity Fabric, and that also bridges to them the system I/O via the chipset and the integrated memory controller, the IMC. So all these things are bridged together via Infinity Fabric, and then the other kind of major changes there are pertaining to Precision Boost 2, which is what AMD is calling its updated version of its boost technology for Zen. So the boost technology primarily has hinged on the things you would expect. How much current is going to the CPU. On the GPU side, you're looking at current, voltage, power consumption, and thermals. And a lot of the same stuff is true for the CPUs. So you're looking at these elements for Precision Boost 2 with the addition of implementing a new volt frequency curve where unlike with Zen 1, where you had very hard set frequencies for core utilization, you use one core versus two versus all of them, there's a very defined, almost binary toggle between the frequencies. Unlike that, now it's a more gradual gradient for the frequencies versus the core utilization and the voltage. So that's a big change. They have charts for that where you can see it's kind of a, as you increase core count, it kind of asymptotes out at the bottom. So that's different, and it somewhat mirrors what Intel has been doing. Not to say that AMD and Intel are copying one another, but that this is clearly one of the more optimal ways to configure your core frequencies versus your power consumption. Another item here is that AMD is looking at which thread is under the most demand. So the thread under the most active load is the one that...
Yeah, it's an idiom that means, never mind.
I've been offered an advancement in the Resistance, and my own command.
Will get the most power sent to it, or the most current sent to it.
That makes complete sense.
So they are modulating based on that, not just based on a hard lookup table or something like that.
And so am I.
Further,
So when did this
the
happen?
power between the CPU and the GPU package
You know
are
that I
allocated
wasn't satisfied with my
based
position
upon
and
the current
direction
requirements
in the
of
Resistance.
the applications
life.
running. So AMD is using Firestrike as an
Very true.
example here on one of their presentation slides,
Yes. After
which
my
makes a great
successes
example
with
because
you,
Firestrike,
they see me
for
with
3D Mark Firestrike,
new
it has a few
eyes.
tests. It's got graphics
But
tests
more
and physics
importantly,
tests. Physics
so do
uses almost
I.
zero graphics compute,
So you get your own
and
command?
graphics uses very
It's a
little
covert
CPU.
squad. Tech
So
ops.
between the two,
Commanding a
you
small
can see the
group of
power
elite
allocation
specialists.
go up for
High
the
danger,
Vega component,
high
the
reward.
graphics component during the graphics test. You see the allocation go up for the CPU component during the physics test,
Would you consider
which means that they're
turning
able
it
to
down?
min-max
We've come to rely
their
on you
power
around
and
here.
current budget, because
Some
you
of
can't
us
just
even
push
like you.
all of it through to both components.
And I
They don't have the
like
budget
them.
for it. So you pick and
Mostly.
choose to
Okay, then.
fit the smaller thermal and power
What I
consumption
wanted
limitations
is,
of these
with your
Raven
help,
Ridge chips.
broke free
And that's what
of
they're doing here.
expectation.
And they're able to dynamically regulate
dead.
where the power and the current is going based on
Don't
the
push it.
load of the
But
CPU at that
luck
time,
can
or the GPU as it
shit.
were. AMD, unfortunately, some of their slides aren't all that helpful. They are employing the bigger bar, better mentality for them, where you've got a y-axis with no label. Well, they have a label, but no numbers. An x-axis with no numbers. So it's just sort of nebulous, infinitely going in each direction with no actual understanding of what it means, which is very unfortunate because it's an interesting slide otherwise. But this is something we'll look at more in testing later on. Just like we talked about when Ryzen launched, AMD is still using LDOs, or low dropout regulators, for their power management. And the LDOs here double as power gates. So they can turn things on and off based on the current needs of the system. This goes to the extreme of being able to disable 95% of the GPU if it's not needed, which of course is really important for any kind of mobile chip because you care a lot about battery life. And if you have a GPU sitting there burning power waiting to be used, you're just burning battery life. So they can power gate down to 95% of it off. And they can further power gate with GPU uncore. So all of the uncore components, things like cache, would be mitigated in their consumption as well,
monolithic,
and
almost
save more power.
faceless.
Power gating for SoC functions is split into two containers.
it's
So
secured with a
they have a good
biometric
slide for
lock
this
that can
one, where
So, like a
the
fingerprint
containers
scanner.
are
Exactly. Whatever's in this
they label them A
is
and B.
probably
One of them
only meant for
contains the
trusted
CPU interface, the
But
GPU
that would-
interface, and the I/O
remember
hub.
those
That would be all
Lexi's
in
been
one.
working on the tape.
And the other one
We should
contains
go
the
talk with her when you
multimedia
have
hub
time.
and the memory controller in a second container. And then these can be gated based on which region or container they are in, based on the load of the system to reduce power consumption further. And all of this allows a 99% residency on a Windows idle screen static. So they're able to use very little power and just sit there idle and have a long standby life basically on
It's
the
my night off.
laptops. Now we haven't tested this, these are all claims in their marketing slides, But some of this stuff's already out there. Some of the Ryzen 7 2700U and the 2500U components have been out for a little while now. There are more coming forward. There's
She's restless, but on the
well, there's a couple things interesting.
So you're not really taking
the R3s, 2300U, the 2200U are both coming out. Those are 3.4 gigahertz boost and 2.0 gigahertz for 2300U and 2.5 for the 2200U.
How do you be
They
both
are
you
2300U is 4-core, 4-thread with 6 compute units, and that would be 64 times 6 for the streaming processors.
Pathfinder,
3 compute units for the 2200U.
I don't know who
2 core, 4
You're
threads on that one.
200 years old?
Other than these, the roadmap has been laid out as well for the future for AMD, including a card that will compete with NVIDIA in the deep learning and machine learning space. So that will be a new Vega GPU on 7nm process. The immediate roadmap, however, lists a Ryzen 3 mobile APU for January 9th, aka now, the Ryzen desktop APUs for February 12th, and second-gen Ryzen desktop processors in April, which we already knew from our earlier coverage, Ryzen Pro Mobile Q2, and second-gen Threadripper, a lot of you were interested in. That's second half 2018, second-gen Ryzen Pro, second half 2018. Other smaller items here included the launch of the 400 series. We already covered that. There have been some changes to overclocking. Some of the motherboard vendors have told us directly that they are focusing on better enabling P-state overclocking. Not necessarily that useful, but definitely an enthusiast thing that helps. And then they have some CPU cooler updates and a reduction, permanent reduction in pricing for Ryzen desktop CPUs going forward for the ones that are out now. So that's what we have for you. Just a kind of quick recap of the AMD news as we've seen it. You can find some more unique coverage in our Gigabyte X470 motherboard analysis, I suppose, show floor analysis news video. If you're interested, subscribe for more CES coverage. As always, go to patreon.com/gamersnexus to help us out directly, and I'll see you all next time.
Pathfinder, this area can be mined for resources. You can extract minerals via your mining interface.
This area is called Dralir. It means death caves.
I think Fetra wanted to show me something close by, but she's not here. I can't do this without Vetra. She'd kill me.
This is it. Can't wait till you see the view.
Got them all. You were right. The view is great from up here.
We're not even to the top yet. Come on, I'll race you. And no jump jets. We're doing it the old-fashioned way.
What do I get if I win?
What would you like?
The bad guy defeated, a magic sword, and the girl.
Good thing you're losing then. I don't have a magic sword. Having fun? You look like you're having fun. Hey, is this real?
Yeah, I think the sky's real.
No. This. How you are towards me. It's like you care more than a friend. I don't mind if it's no. I just want to be sure it gets messy otherwise.
I do care about you. More than a friend.
Really? I didn't want to assume. Seems so unlikely. Me.
And how's that for proving it?
I'm convinced.
There you are. Did you investigate the...
I learned you're a Ket collaborator and a murderer.
Who's one victim short.
So it's true. Old spies really do live forever.
This old spy would punch you if he wasn't carrying evidence in his chest. I tried to give you a decent burial, Major. There was no time to convince you of our cause.
Selling your Ark to the Ket makes no logical or tactical sense.
To you, because you lack data. Several of us woke early, prepped the Ark, and then we found the Ket, an unstoppable enemy. So we made a pact. Sacrifice our Ark to the Ket and learn their secrets, so one day we could destroy them along with their exaltation.
You pretended to be Ket allies so you could study them, then stab them in the back?
Listen, there is an empire of Ket beyond Helios. All-powerful conquerors who will invade us eventually. The secrets we learn could stop our extinction before it begins. Give us our freedom, and they're yours. Don't let this go to waste.
What exactly are you offering?
The intricacies of the Ket Empire. Vassals, potential weak points, exaltation secrets.
Which we can't confirm. And you could have pulled out of your cloaca.
We had to sacrifice civilians for this, Major. Will you let that be for nothing?
Put this traitor where he belongs, Major.
We have particular accommodations for collaborators.
I've got nothing but time to look. I'm retired, remember? I owe you big for this run.
Pathfinder, got a minute? Now orbiting Gadara. Care for some tea, Ryder?
I'd love a cup.
It's a cultivar originating in Sumatra. My own personal stash. Once I run out, that'll be it for Earth tea. I keep having these thoughts. I'm never gonna taste this again. I'm never gonna see that again.
You're not the only one, Subi. I have those senseless thoughts all the damn time.
And? Do they bother you?
It's natural. You'd have to be made of stone not to miss home sometimes.
The universe is like a giant tapestry. I love following its threads, but it distracts me from the whole picture. My family was right there, but I was too occupied by the abstract to appreciate them.
From everything you've told me, you're here because of your family. Your love of science, doesn't that come from them? Aren't you with them every time you chase down a new discovery?
Ryder, that's beautiful.
My mother made the implant in my head, and my father created the AI that uses it. I haven't lost them either.
Thank you, Ryder.
were pretty confident.
You baited me. Toyed with me.
You liked that, didn't you?
I did. Right until you showed me that damn
Suvi, did you ever meet Jen Garson?
I shook her hand once at a fundraiser and then blurted something about wanting to look under her dress. Now orbiting Gadara. I wanted to see how it worked. Prototype smart textile, changing colors in response to sound. And the... was also a lot of champagne.
Pythias system, home of Eos and Prodromos.
Descent is green.
Coordinating. Path is calm.
Liam marked something nearby.
Prodromos is suited up and
ready for the exchange, Pathfinder.
Grab your civvies. Going to get hot.
How did you do all this?
Well, it didn't take much. A ball, flat ground. Hustle would start games at refugee camps. I didn't get it then, but after the attack here and the shit with Varan's rescue, I wanted to try something. Low tech. What do you think?
Plenty of people on teams, but barely any spectators. This could have been a big deal.
It is a big deal. It isn't for an audience. That's what I didn't get about games like this. Because I was a responder, an outsider jumping from crisis to crisis. But after everything I've seen on your team, free kick for charging. No charge for matchmaking. What?
We're lucky to have you.
You better believe it. You too, Ryder. You're a jerk sometimes, but as Pathfinder, this is because of you. Switch up. Ready to get in the game?
Yeah, the Pathfinder should make an appearance. Try to keep up, Costa.
Don't count on it. I'm complete rubbish.
good. You're here. Yeah, so listen. She's only got a minute or two, and she's in rare form today. Just to warn you. She's here kickstarting repopulation protocols, reversing the chemical procreation blockers for colonists. Calls it boosting the batter. She's gonna talk your ear off about your civic duty as a man.
That is what she's here to do. The woman takes her job.
Hey, if you...
Am I interrupting something?
Ah, Jill. About time.
Save it. I asked you both to stop by, remember? Ryder, pleasure. I know we're all very busy, so I have only one question for you.
Sure, go ahead.
What the hell did you do to him? It's like he's an adult or something. He can even have a mature conversation without it degrading into pot shots. Unless I take it there. What's your secret?
I have nothing to do with it. It's all him.
I call bullshit on that. It's definitely your influence. Something.
Maybe all these years you thought you knew me, you were sadly mistaken.
You wish. Okay, you're both off the hook. So glad I got to meet you, Ryder.
Likewise.
Recovery's a long-term process.
I think that's cat tech. Stay alert.
This is the place. Ready?
So where's your mystery project?
Not far. Soil. Add seeds, some rain, and you've got a garden. It'll take you a sorry thinking centuries. Lay a foundation, then step away. Let it grow into something you might never expect. Pathfinder training was my foundation. Gave me a whole galaxy of directions I could go. I don't need someone else's plan. One I started with my friend.
What seeds do you have?
Desert flowers and grasses from across the Milky Way. Colors we don't even have when they've prepared the ground. Ready? 1, 2...
Ascent is go.
Receiving Atmo. All clear. Can we talk when you're free?
Got your memo, Suvi.
Tell me you have a...
Test.
Brute force.
Tried.
Key for...
Whoa.
It just locked onto a transmission.
Oh crap, turn it off. Who knows what it's doing?
The device is a receiver. It will not reveal our location.
This transmission...
The Archon has abandoned our way. Spurns tradition, defies. He abuses his authority, obsesses over Remnant secrets, and keeps us cut off from home. This cannot continue. He will return to the path of right or be destroyed. This is... An Archon stands tall only while we hold him up.
Someone's gunning for the Archon.
You don't mean...
Don't know yet.
It's the same. I wonder if there's... I'll transmit it to your...
What do you think will...
I don't know.
Whatever it is.
Descent is green.
Coordinating. Path is calm.
Pathfinder, this area can be mined for resources. You can extract minerals via your mining interface.
At least it's cooler in here. Loot from our outposts. And an Ark escape pod? Where did they get that?
Doesn't matter. They're not keeping it.
We need an up-close scan. This is is the nav point Suvi gave us, but there's nothing here. Just this beacon.
Routing through a bunch of proxies to hide a transmission's true location. Sounds like something I'd do if I wanted to speak out against you.
If it's all connected, then this beacon warrants a closer look.
Tuned the Nomad perfectly for EOS.
Hostiles ahead!
Pathfinder, I have located another node on this net. Pathfinder, this area can be mined for resources. You can extract minerals via your mining interface. Pathfinder, the Remnant have altered the landscape ahead.
Signal comes and goes. You've evened out the weather, but I wouldn't call reception clear. EOS still feels frontier. Claim, but not tame, you like to say.
Think that's it. Between the eyes. That's it for hostiles. Let's see what this beacon has for us.
Pathfinder, I have located an... Pathfinder, this area can be mined for resources. You can extract minerals via your mining interface.
high as we climb, it feels like there's so much more out.
The transmission is strong and unobstructed here, Pathfinder.
Looks like we found it then.
Resources in this area are limited.
Watch out. They're on us.
Exaltation lifted our ancestors.
Well, we found it. This looks like a comm console. It's probably what's sending out...
And so you have found me. You are a single-minded creature. I see it now. Your determination will grant the Ket dominion over this galaxy.
Determination is a personality trait, not a genetic one. Not that personality is something you understand. Or have.
You waste time on pettiness. I did not reveal myself as a traitor easily. I did so only because I seek a mutual benefit.
Getting rid of the Archon.
This must end.
I take it you need my help?
I need only ensure nothing stands between.
Yeah, exaltation.
One day you will be family. Till then, fight if you must. But I offer a reprieve from this conflict, so you can destroy a mutual enemy.
It'll give us an ace in our back pocket. Just make sure the gun's loaded when we use it.
Deals with the devil always end badly. I don't want to end badly.
Why do you oppose the Archon?
The Archon says he will use Meridian to dominate this cluster. He says Meridian will bring us victory. We have never needed Remnant to be victorious. No, I am not alone in this thought.
What exactly do I get from this deal?
Sometime soon, I will be called upon by the Archon to destroy you. When that time arrives, I will provide you with the means to disable my ship.
Or you could just leave me alone.
And should you fail to bring down the Archon, my treachery will be exposed.
Covering your own ass.
We don't deal with Ket.
I hope you found some satisfaction. The Archon does not serve Ket's interests, only his own. He wastes our time on the Remnant, but keeps all knowledge for himself. These are the acts of a traitor, not true. Ket.
Ascent is go.
Leaving Atmo. All clear.
Gil's been asking if you can come by.
I think I could handle it.
Your brain's rattled enough.
Come on. One headbutt. We'll keep Lexi on standby.
So my buddy Jill, who, by the way, can't stop singing your praises, wants to have a baby. And, stop me if you've heard this one before, she asked me if I'd father it.
Wow. That's huge.
Right?
What the hell are you going to do?
I don't know. I'm still in the freaking out phase. Would it be totally crazy if I said yes?
I don't think it's crazy.
I mean, we're already family. I get her, she gets me, and we I hear you. And you know I've been thinking about it, Ryder. Bringing a kid into the world wouldn't be enough for me.
Sounds like you know what you want.
Yeah. It's funny, you can think until you're blue in the face. Sometimes you just gotta trust your gut.
I'm very happy for you, Gil.
Or should I say, Uncle?
I just feel better if the Tempest had a main gun.
Hull's not built for it. The recoil will blow out all our fancy windows.
Hey, Ryder, you busy?
Vetra?
Sorry, this way. Watch your...
Ow!
Shins.
Can I open my eyes now?
Okay, just a little more. Good. Open. Surprise.
This is wonderful.
I tried. It wasn't easy to get all this together, but you're worth it. I made it for you myself. It's steak. Cow.
Earth cow?
It just said cow on the packet. Does it matter?
Delicious. I love cow. I'm gonna take time to savor this.
You don't have to be nice about it. I know I probably made it wrong.
Vetra, this is great, but you didn't have to.
I just wanted to do something special for you. As thanks. This journey has taken centuries. But we see the destination clearly now. Because of you. You care about my sister. You care about me. For me. Not because you can get something out of me. I love you. I just don't want to ruin it. I thought...
Nothing's ruined. It would take a lot to ruin this.
Really?
Because I love you too.
I think I know how to make all this up to you.
Please, no more food.
No. I think you'll like this. What can I do for you, Pathfinder? You know where to find me.
Ryder? That's all I can share, anyway.
See you later.
A real victory. Our Ark back at the Nexus. I'd almost given up hope.
The Ket won't touch the Parchero.
Losing Pathfinder Reka is a blow. So many but you did your best. Did you need me?
Tell me something.
O'Connell, our system... For 2 days, poor O'Connell was convinced that turning on all the
What do you think?
I think that PB needs to read a few safety manuals. I'm all out of stories for now. No, if I gossip anymore.
I'm still trying to make... I can't believe the Angara are... design... Helios is... Anything you want to talk about before we head back? You know it.
pretty view.
I like to imagine what my ancestors would... how we flourished in spite of everything.
Here's hoping the rest of us
If all humans are like you, I have no... I've been studying those artifacts. It's as though we suddenly sprang into being... Or what if they also engineered our... I can't imagine getting here without you, Ryder.
The discoveries you make impact all of us now. What's next for you?
Keep looking for answers. Of course we will.
Why are we even debating this rumor?
Exactly. The idea that we were created in a laboratory, it's insane.
Is it? Perhaps the Pathfinder can illuminate us. If the rumors are true, you saw it with your own eyes. Did a vanished alien species of immense power genetically engineer us? And if so, why?
Your Moshae is more qualified than I to answer those questions.
You're more politic than I was led to believe.
We've resolved nothing. Wrong. I'm resolved to stop talking about it. There are better uses of our time. Increase your odds of survival.
Pathfinder.
I'm not selling to aliens.
I really wonder what would have... The people here have been so generous, and honestly, they didn't need to...
I'm certainly thankful they didn't gun us all down.
Now it's up to...
Need more armor, I see. Check out my inventory.
Pathfinder. Something I can do for you?
Pathfinder, got a minute? The Nexus science team is completely blown away by what you found in the... It's a tremendous find, Ryder. The team asked me to pass on their thanks. There's already talk of hybridizing our food crops with... You know, if the Jardan were capable of creating life, then what if our creator is just like the Jardan, advanced but mortal, fallible?
If you want to keep...
Uh-huh. You're saying I'll find some way to convince or delude myself?
No, I wasn't really saying that.
Ryder, don't be silly. Even if you didn't mean... That's what faith is. I'm picking up something. Deploying probe.
Intense scourge activity is common in this area. Might be worth planting a probe. Approaching one of the ideal probe locations, Pathfinder. We've arrived at a scourge nav point appropriate for data collection.
Anomaly detected. Probes launched. Probes launched.
This is one of the chosen data collection nav points. We should release a probe. Arrived at a scourge nav point appropriate for data collection. Approximating remnant ship dynamics. Sam?
Building predictive.
Between the remnant city Meridian and however the scourge fits in, pardon my Martian, but it's all weird as shite.
Just the relevant.
The mother of...
With correction for the scourge.
Feels different coming back here now.
We're different. We're ready.
Sam's marked a potential override for Remnant ship control. A tower with its own energy grid.
It may be one of the controls that deployed Meridian, and the means to find it again.
Right, Pathfinder. Find the override, apply that hardware, and the Remnant will fly the same vector as Meridian.
And maybe, just maybe, we get lucky. For once. Ready?
It's time. And we're due.
This is for us. Let's do it.
Tempest, we're going in. Quiet so far, but something's different.
Orbital scans identified a separate energy grid within the tower.
Meaning?
Defenses here may not be on our side.
145 meters to projected override controls.
Through the door. Eyes open.
Remnant, they don't look friendly. So, back to normal? More incoming! They do not want to give up this space. You're breaking! Keep it up!
That was a hard one, right?
We must be close to the controls we need. Let's move. One last Remnant door.
Controls are ahead. Projections suggest multiple launch bays and possible links to Meridian deployment.
Sam, everything ready?
All relevant data is queued for uplink.
Right.
Remnant ships have lifted off. They're following the override vector.
The Scourge is moving, but they're getting through to something.
Meridian, Pathfinder.
What? What is that? An artificial planet?
It's hollow, like a Dyson sphere but moon-sized.
A self-contained seed world. It is the heart of the Vault network, and when reactivated, every connected planet will be affected. It is the means to make Helios a home, Pathfinder.
what we've worked and fought for.
Congratulations, Pathfinder.
Sam? Tempest, what is going on?
I believed you, fitting rival, that you are a false thing, a lie. Once I saw what made you special, your connection, I knew how and when to take it from you. I let you find Meridian, and now I'll use your SAM to weaponize it. All Helios will be exalted, or one by one your worlds will die, starting with Eos. All I need to start is an implant like yours. And thanks to your memories, I know who else has one. Another reason to take the Hyperion. Fall to darkness, Pathfinder. You are almost worthy.
Keep going. The med bay is still secure.
What the hell is happening?
I wish I knew.
Hello, Sarah.
Sam? How are you? What's happening out there? They're shooting people.
Kett forces are sweeping the ship. They're looking for you. Sarah, the Pathfinder needs your help.
This is crazy. He's closing on Meridian.
The Archon has severed my link to your brother's implant. If basic function isn't manually restored, he will die.
What?
Sarah, please, proceed to Depot K4 to secure a weapon.
God damn it. Contact Sam, come on!
The Archon isn't stealing the Hyperion. He wants you and me. Your implant is the same as the Pathfinder's. He'll use us to control Meridian, and your brother will die.
The Archon will kill him?
No, losing me will.
What? Sam?
I am sorry I can't help you fight. I took over too much of your brother's implant, and losing me will kill him.
So when the comms dropped, he did too?
Hurry, Sarah.
You're fighting to the comm override? You can't!
I know. Sam isn't making sense.
No, I mean take the access route. Hold them! Sarah needs to get to that maintenance access.
Dunn, you can't keep this up.
Then make it quick. Get to the QEC.
Sam, Dunn won't last long. What's the plan?
Manually send a reboot signal. It will reset your brother's implant.
Like a factory reset. Okay, we're here.
One pulse, Sarah. That's all the Pathfinder needs.
And it probably alerts the Archon. He'll know where I am.
I am sorry.
Me too, Sam. Me too.
Liar shooters!
Open, you piece of... Ugh!
Tempest, the Pathfinder is down. Come in.
Ryder, you were gone.
That
Hyperion's dark. Sam with it. We need to get back.
But the door is Remnant. You need Sam.
We need to get back.
Okay, that looks like it hurt. Are you sure you can...
We need to get back.
Your vitals are all over the place.
I can do this.